I want bands, you want bands, we all want bands. If you tell me you don't care about money, I'm gonna need you to close this video immediately because we are not on the same page and I don't think we ever will be. And look, I'm not talking about being obsessed with money in that weird way where it's all you think about and you forget to be a human being. I'm not saying chase money at the cost of everything else in your life. That's a different conversation for a different day.
What I am saying is that money is important, like genuinely, actually, practically important. And pretending it isn't doesn't make you spiritual or enlightened. It just makes you broke with a good attitude about it. I've met people who were like, money doesn't buy happiness, while struggling to pay their bills. And I'm like, bro, have you ever paid a bill on time with money you actually had? Because that feels pretty good. That feels like happiness to me. So today we're talking about the art of making bands. Not the get-rich-quick stuff. Not the crypto overnight stuff. Not the weird online scheme stuff. The actual, real, practical psychology and habits behind why some people consistently make money and other people consistently don't. And why the gap between those two groups is usually not what people think it is. Because here's the thing I've noticed. Most people don't have a money problem. They have a thinking problem. And until you fix the thinking, the money situation doesn't really change, no matter how many opportunities come your way.
So let's get into it. This one is going to be worth your time. Let's go.
Okay, so let's start with the uncomfortable part. The reason most people aren't making the money they want to make. And before you say it, yes, the economy is real. Yes, things are expensive. Yes, the system is not perfectly designed in your favor. All of that is true, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. But I'm also not going to let that be the whole story. Because plenty of people are out here making bands in the same economy you're living in right now. So clearly the economy alone isn't the full explanation.
The real reason most people struggle with money is simpler and harder to hear at the same time. They've never actually sat down and decided what they want their money situation to look like. Like actually decided. With a real number, a real plan, a real timeline. Most people's financial goal is just more. More than right now. More than last year. More than I have. Which sounds like a goal, but it's actually not a goal at all. It's just a direction. And a direction without a destination is just wandering. Imagine getting in your car and telling yourself you want to drive somewhere warm. And then just driving. No destination entered, no address, just vibing in a warm direction. You might end up somewhere warm eventually, or you might run out of gas in a random parking lot and call that your destination because you stopped there. That's what most people's relationship with money looks like. Just driving in the direction of more with no real destination. And then wondering why they never feel like they've arrived anywhere. The first thing you need to do, and I mean actually do, not just nod at while watching this, is decide on a real specific number. Not, I want to make more money. What does more actually mean to you? What monthly income would genuinely change your daily life? What would make you feel like, okay, this is working? Because once you have a real number, everything changes. Now you can actually work backwards. Now you can ask, what would I need to do to get there? Now you can look at what you're currently doing and ask honestly whether it leads to that number or not. And for most people, the honest answer to that last question is no. What they're currently doing does not lead to the number they actually want. But they've never done the math, so they've never had to confront that. They just keep doing what they're doing, hoping the money figures itself out somehow. Spoiler, it doesn't figure itself out. Money is not shy about where it goes. It goes exactly where attention and intention and consistent action direct it. And if none of those things are pointed at a specific target, the money goes somewhere, but it's probably not where you want it. Okay, so let's talk about mindset. And I know, mindset is one of those words that gets thrown around so much it's lost all meaning. But hear me out, because this is actually important. Most people think the sequence goes like this. I make more money,
Then I start thinking like someone who has money, then my life changes. And that sounds logical, right? Get the money first, then the mindset follows. But that's actually completely backwards. The mindset comes first. The money follows the mindset, not the other way around. And I know that sounds like something you'd find on a motivational poster in a dentist's waiting room, but it's actually backed up by real patterns you can observe in real life. Think about people who win the lottery, like actually win millions of dollars, life-changing money. And then 5 years later, they're broke again.
How does that happen? How do you get millions of dollars and end up back at zero? Because the money changed, but the mindset didn't. They had a broke mindset with a lot of money, and the broke mindset won eventually. Because mindset always wins in the long run. And then think about people who lose everything. Business fails, bad investment, something goes completely wrong. And then 5 years later, they're back. They rebuilt. Sometimes they built something even bigger than what they had before. Because they had a wealth mindset with no money. And the wealth mindset eventually produced the money again. The mindset is the constant. The money is the variable. And until you change the constant, changing the variable is just temporary. So what does a wealth mindset actually look like in practice?
Because I'm not talking about affirmations or vision boards or thinking positive thoughts. I'm talking about specific practical ways of thinking about money that actually produce different results.
First thing, people with a wealth mindset think about money in terms of what it can produce, not just what it can buy. Every purchase they make, they're aware of whether that thing is going to produce more value in the future or just consume value right now.
And that doesn't mean they never spend money on things they enjoy. It just means they're conscious about the ratio. Second thing, they think long-term by default. Not exclusively, but by default. Which means when they're making decisions about money, they're not just thinking about how it feels right now. They're thinking about where this leads in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years. And that longer time horizon changes almost every decision.
Like the difference between spending money on something you'll forget about in 2 weeks versus putting that same money somewhere it grows over time sounds obvious when you say it out loud. But in the moment, with the thing right in front of you, that longer time horizon is the only thing that actually changes the decision. And most people just don't have it running in the background. Third thing, they're not embarrassed about wanting money. This sounds small, but it's actually huge. There's this weird cultural thing where wanting money is somehow seen as shallow or greedy. And so a lot of people have this quiet guilt around wanting financial success that actually holds them back from pursuing it fully.
But wanting money isn't greedy. Money is a tool. Wanting a powerful tool so you can do more things is just practical. The people who are making real bands are not apologizing for wanting to make real bands. They decided they wanted it, they're pursuing it, and they don't feel weird about it.
Okay, so now let's get into the actual practical side of this. Because mindset matters, but at some point you also have to actually do something. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's one magic path. There isn't. Anyone who tells you there's one specific thing you need to do to make money is either selling something or has a very limited view of how money actually gets made in the world.
But what I can tell you is the patterns. The things that show up consistently across different people who figure out how to make real money regardless of their specific path. First pattern, they solve problems. Every single source of income that has ever existed is someone solving a problem for someone else. A job is you solving a problem your employer has. A business is you solving a problem your customers have. Investments are you solving the problem of capital allocation for companies or assets that need it.
Which means if you want to make more money, the question you need to be asking is what problems can I solve and for who? Not what can I do to make money. What problems can I solve? Because money follows problem solving at a very consistent rate.
And here's the thing about problems. There are infinite problems in the world, like literally
infinite. And most of them are not being solved well or at all, which means there is genuinely no shortage of opportunity. The shortage is in people who are willing to actually identify a real problem and commit to solving it consistently.
Second pattern. They build skills that are worth paying for. This sounds obvious, but most people's approach to skills is completely passive. They learn whatever they happen to be exposed to and then wonder why the market doesn't pay them more. But the people making real money are usually deliberate about skills. They look at what the market actually pays well for. They identify the specific skills that produce the most value, and then they invest serious time into developing those skills to a level where they're actually exceptional at them. Because being okay at something doesn't really pay well. Being good pays reasonably. Being exceptional pays extremely well. And the gap between good and exceptional is usually just focused, deliberate practice that most people aren't willing to put in because it's less fun than being okay at a lot of things. Third pattern, multiple income streams. And I know this is something everyone says, but I want to talk about why it actually matters, beyond just the obvious reason of having more money coming in. The real reason multiple income streams matter is because they change your psychology around money in a fundamental way. When you have one income source, every financial decision carries an enormous amount of weight because losing that one source is catastrophic. That weight makes you conservative, risk-averse, afraid to invest in things that could grow because you can't afford to be wrong. But when you have multiple income sources, even if none of them are huge individually, you have a completely different relationship with risk and opportunity. You can experiment. You can try things. You can invest in your own growth without the fear that one mistake ends everything. And that willingness to try things, to experiment, to take calculated risks, that's actually where most real money gets made. Not in the safe, predictable lane. In the experiments that most people are too scared to run because they only have one income and can't afford to be wrong. Okay, so now let's talk about the specific habits that are quietly keeping people from making the money they want, because I think sometimes it's more useful to identify what's in the way than to just talk about what to do. First habit, lifestyle inflation. This is when every time your income goes up, your spending goes up at the same rate. So you never actually get ahead. You just live more expensively at each level. I've seen people go from making $2,000 a month to $5,000 a month and somehow still feel broke. Because when they made $2,000, they had $2,000 problems. When they made $5,000, they just upgraded to $5,000 problems. The number changed, the gap between income and financial progress stayed exactly the same. The people who actually build wealth don't do this. When their income goes up, they don't immediately upgrade everything around them to match it. They keep their lifestyle relatively stable and let the difference between what they make and what they spend actually accumulate into something. And I know that's hard, because when you make more money, there's a very natural and human desire to enjoy it, to get the nicer apartment, to eat at better restaurants, to upgrade the car. And you can do some of that. But if you do all of it immediately, every time your income increases, you're on a treadmill that keeps moving without ever actually getting you anywhere. Second habit, avoiding looking at the numbers. This one is wild to me because it's so common and so counterproductive. People who are struggling financially are often the least likely to actually look at their financial situation directly. Like, they know it's bad, so they just don't check. They don't look at the account, they don't add up what they owe, they don't calculate what they spend versus what they make, because looking at it makes it real. And real is uncomfortable. But here's the thing. Not looking doesn't make it better. It just means you're navigating with your eyes closed. And navigating anything with your eyes closed is how you walk into walls repeatedly and then wonder why you keep hitting walls. The moment you actually look at the numbers, even when they're bad, especially when they're bad, something shifts. Because now you have information. And information is what you need to make different decisions. You can't fix what you won't look at. Third habit,
spending money to feel better about not having money. And I know that sounds contradictory, but it's incredibly common. You feel stressed about money, so you buy something. Because buying something feels like control. It feels like abundance. It feels like you're not the kind of person who has money problems. Because look, you're spending money. And then the purchase makes the money situation slightly worse, which makes you slightly more stressed, which makes you want to buy something again. This is a loop, and a lot of people are stuck in it without even realizing it. The spending isn't actually making them feel better in any lasting way. It's just a temporary hit that delays the stress for a few hours and then brings it back slightly worse than before.
The fix for this isn't just stop spending money, because that's not addressing the actual thing. The fix is finding other ways to feel in control and capable when money stress hits. Exercise, working on a skill, making progress on something.
Okay, so let's talk about the thing that I think separates people who eventually figure out the money thing from people who never quite get there. It's the ability to play the long game. And I know that sounds simple, but it's genuinely one of the hardest things for most people to actually do consistently. Because the long game is boring. Like genuinely boring for a really long time. You're doing the right things and nothing dramatic is happening. You're building skills and the skill level isn't impressive yet. You're saving and the savings aren't significant yet. You're working on something and it's not producing results yet. And during that boring period, the temptation is to either give up or switch to something that seems more exciting or immediately rewarding. And most people do one of those two things, which is exactly why most people never get to the part where the long game actually pays off.
The people who make real bands consistently are almost always people who committed to something long enough for it to actually compound. Skills compound, reputation compounds, income sources compound, networks compound. The boring, consistent work of building something real over time compounds into results that look like overnight success from the outside, but took years of quiet work to produce. And here's the thing about compounding that people don't fully appreciate. It's not linear. The first year of building something, the results are small. The second year, slightly less small. By year 3 or 4 or 5, the results start to feel disproportionate to the effort because all the previous years of effort are now compounding together, which means the people who quit in year 1 or 2 are quitting right before the graph starts curving upward. They did most of the boring work and then left right before it got interesting. And then they watched someone else who just happened to stick around a little longer get the results that their own work helped build the foundation for. That's the cruelest part of the long game. Most of the people who give up are actually closer than they think. They just can't see it from where they are because the results haven't shown up yet.
So, how do you actually stick with the long game when it's boring and nothing seems to be working yet? A few things that actually help. First, track inputs, not just outputs. Because in the early stages, the outputs are small and discouraging. But the inputs, the hours you put in, the skills you practiced, the things you built, those are real, regardless of what the results look like yet. Tracking what you're actually doing keeps you connected to the reality that progress is happening, even when it's not visible yet.
Second, find the right comparison. If you're comparing yourself to people who are 5 years ahead of you in the game, you're going to feel behind every single day. But if you compare yourself to where you were 6 months ago, you'll almost always find real progress that you couldn't see when you were in the middle of it. And third, just accept that it's going to be boring for a while. Like, genuinely accept it. Stop waiting for it to feel exciting and important every day. Some days it's going to feel like you're doing a lot of unremarkable work for unclear reasons. And that's fine. That's actually what building something looks like from the inside. The exciting part comes later. Right now is just work.
So here's where I want to leave this whole thing. The art of making bands is not really about money at all at its core. It's about deciding what you actually want, building the thinking that produces it,
solving problems that are worth solving, developing skills that are worth paying for, and being willing to play the long game when everyone else gets bored and quits.
None of that is complicated. All of it is hard. And the gap between complicated and hard is where most people get confused. They think because something isn't complicated, it should be easy. But simple things done consistently over a long time are some of the hardest things in the world because they require you to keep showing up when there's no immediate reward for doing so.
But the people who figure that out, who really, genuinely figure it out, those are the people making bands. Not because they found some secret, but because they stayed when everyone else left. They kept going when it was boring. They did the work when they didn't feel like it. And eventually the compounding kicked in and everything they built started to actually show. That can be you. It genuinely can. The only question is whether you're willing to do the boring part long enough to get to the good part.
And based on the fact that you watched this whole video, I think you might be. That's all I've got for this one. Drop a comment if something hit different, or if you want me to go deeper on any of this. I read every single one. And I'll catch you in the next one.